After a month off, back with Coast to Coast, Kevin Bunk, Gabe Zoda coming to you for BTO Media, and you should expect it now every week for the rest of the season. Getting a phone call. Going to just delete that quick. And we're going to continue. So expect it for the rest of the season, Coast to Coast, and we will put my phone on Do Not Disturb. But we'll start here next. Of course, we're going to go to the Lakers. Today, we're going to be doing Contenders, Pretenders, introducing a new style of segment that we're going to be doing every episode on this that you can look forward to. Also can look forward to seeing it on our social media clips. It'll be similar to the Who'd You Rather that we do on the Sunday recap. And we also have some trade season stuff. Steph Curry coming to the Knicks. We'll talk about it. And Gabe, I'll let you take the floor on basically the last month of the Knicks. We've had panic. We've had extreme highs, a little bit in the middle. Where are you at this point?
Well, I feel like a part of it hasn't really changed much. A lot of the fan base has been kind of in this weird spot, right, Kevin? Everyone's still talking about the bench is not good enough, and there's no way that the Knicks can compete against the top echelons of the league. You look at OKC, you look at Boston Celtics, right? And Knicks fans are kind of in this weird spot, and it's a weird kind of path to set for fans, right, Kevin? Because fans this year, after the Karl-Anthony Towns trade, they said this was the year to go all in. This was the chance that they'll finally contend. They'll finally actually make a run at a final. But the more we go on to the season, you're hearing more and more murmurings of, oh, well, we knew that this year was a process year. We knew that this year was a big step towards our goal, but not exactly where we want to be at the finish line. So fans are kind of confused right now of exactly what the Knicks have got going on. Are they actually going to contend, which I think you and I both think that they very much could. But on the flip side, is this just going to be another year where they might honestly finish at a second round exit here in these playoffs? So it's a weird spot to be in. Obviously, fans are really looking forward for Mitch Rob to come back. I think that that'll solve a lot of problems, but I don't think it's as important as everyone's making it out to be. You got to trust Leon Rose here. We'll talk about the trade deadline a little bit. You got to trust these moves that he makes. But other than that, fans are kind of in this weird limbo mode of the season where they feel like they're a really good team, but they don't feel like they can compete with the top echelons of the league.
And that's what it is, right? I totally agree with you. The problem I have with the Knicks is you just can't convince me right now that this team can go 7 games with Boston or Cleveland. And that's the reality of it, is they don't have the group or the depth to do it. Next year, they absolutely could. They could this year if Leon gets really creative at the deadline. But I want to talk about Mitch Rob as a real focal point for us today, because the way I look at their season, they're 12 games over 500. They're 2 games back of Boston, and he hasn't played a single play, obviously. He hasn't even really started serious on-court workouts yet. So for me, I'm pretty comfortable trading Mitchell Robinson because you see how good the team is right now. And listen, they are a very good team. We can't say that they're not, but they're a very good team without him. So with him, they'll be better, but could you trade him? Is it possible his value's at his highest? Because, Gabe, if he comes back and he's not in great shape and he doesn't have a very strong second half of the year, you're sitting there in a pretty tough spot. I think his value might be at its max right now.
His value could be at its max, but it also could be still, that max could be very low, right? Like, you have to look at it where a team, let's say, I don't know what team could even offer for him, but you look at teams around the league, they see a guy like Mitch Rob and they see, well, exactly what you just said. He's never on the court. You look at his price tag that he's got left on his contract that you're going to have to end up paying out. It just doesn't make sense to really spend big. And this trading Mitch Rob could be more of a money dump move rather than a asset bring in kind of move. And I think that's the biggest problem, to where if you're trying to money dump and you're the Knicks, you don't want to do that mid-season. That's a move you'll make in the offseason, just because that's where you'll be at in that course of the offseason. But if you want to really contend, I don't know how much you're getting from Mitch Rob. You heard some calls around the league for a guy like Jericho Sims, but you and I both know that he doesn't have a lot of value because his name is Jericho Sims. He's not good at basketball. So, I mean, it just, that's just what it is. So we're not hearing anything about Mitch Rob because nobody knows anything about Mitch Rob. They're saying January. They're saying late January, February. When he comes back, will he be even good? You see him on the sidelines, and I hate to be the bearer of bad news. The guy's overweight. The guy is overweight on the sidelines. You see his chubby face out there, and I know, he hasn't been able to use his leg, but what am I supposed to expect here? To be this demon that he was, a couple seasons ago, last season? I just don't think it'll get there. I don't think the Knicks trade him because I think they see him as kind of that completion of this team, but I don't know how much is going to pan out for him.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't know if Robinson really will be much of an impact player the rest of the year. I don't know how much better he'll be than the options you already have. Maybe with a full offseason of health and work, you can get back to that player next year, but we're not talking about next year. How
And
about you go on?
Kevin, fans think that Mitch Robb, when he comes back, is going to be like the last Infinity Stone for the Knicks. They think that as soon as he steps back on the court, it's going to be this loud aura moment, and he's going to be the difference maker that really sets them apart against the Cavaliers, especially because I saw many tweets. You know the accounts on Twitter, on Knicks Twitter, and they're all like, "Oh, they have this 7-foot demon loading up." Remember what he did against the Cavs like 2 years ago in the playoffs? It's like, dude, you got to let that go. He's not that guy right now. And even if that guy is there, he's not going to be available. He's not going to show up that way just because he's just hasn't been healthy enough.
Yeah, and that Cavs team and this Knicks team are so different 2 years later that you can't even draw comparisons to that series. But how about you go on Twitter? The most sickening delusion that I've seen the last 2 weeks is the Jericho Sims sweepstakes. Are you kidding me? What is the sweepstakes? Who's going to send a second-round pick to the Knicks to get this guy?
Yeah, who wants to? It's like having going on a game show, and I'm probably gonna offend some people saying it's like going on a game show and you win, this prize award, and everyone's like, "Oh, you get this paid vacation," and it's a trip to O Block in Chicago. Like that's not. What kind of sweepstakes is this? I as soon as I saw that on Twitter, of course the Nets were the favorites to win those odds.
Yeah, right.
If you're betting on Jericho Sims trade destinations, call the hotline. Like that should never be a conversation. He just isn't good enough to really get traded. And even if he gets traded for, what do you give him back? A third round pick. I know there's only 2 rounds, but that's what I'm trying to say. The value getting back, you're not getting anything back.
You're probably pick swapping in the second round if you legitimately want to move Jericho Sims. I don't understand the value that a team thinks. The team would have to be so blinded by his athleticism and his highlight tape material that he could put out to completely ignore the fact that he is a G League basketball player. He's a G League star at center. But you get to the NBA and you don't have any of the ball skills that the rest of these guys possess. And that is what it is, man. Like, it's not really supposed to be a knock on the guy. It's just supposed to be, this is not a real contending player in the NBA. And that's a tough thing to do. There's really only 50, 60 contending players in the entire league. And Jericho Sims is not even in the top 200 players, 300 players in the league. Maybe outside of that even. I don't know how many guys there even are. But Sims is not near the top. Sims is very close to the bottom.
Yeah, not high at all. I mean, we always talk about his attributes, and you mentioned the highlight reel potential. I mean, the guy can rebound pretty well. The guy can dunk the ball at a very exceptional rate, and the guy can rim protect at times pretty well as well. But when it comes to the other half of the basketball game, he's unusable. He's not a good screener. If he was a good screener and roller, he would be fantastic, right?
He'd be a great screener.
Yeah. If he was a good screener, I was like, all right, there's value there because he can actually be used in a screen and roll game. But he's not a good screener. He doesn't really get crash offensive boards that much. When you look at his offensive potential, it's not there. He can't even hit a bunny floater.
No.
Like that right there to me says everything I need to know. But in the offseason, though, Kevin, you'll see him hitting corner threes, and people will be oozing all over the social media tabloids and saying that he's going to be next up next year. Get him off the team, bro. I've been saying it for too long.
That's ridiculous, man. And I do have to say something that you've been on since the first episode we've done. How has this all not resulted in more Huck Porty minutes for the Knicks? Because I feel like you're entering this deadline and maybe they see something we don't. I always like to give the benefit of the doubt to the coaches in the front office in these situations. Maybe there's an aspect of his game that we're not really picking up, but I feel like you're going into the deadline with 2 questions unanswered. Could this guy have value for you as a player you can trade for a return, or could this just be the player that you've been waiting for in Mitchell Robinson to come back all year? But Hukporty's shown me flashes to tell me that he might be a bigger energizer than Robinson as a player on the floor. He reminds me of Hartenstein in his first year with the Knicks and his ability to do certain things offensively that surprise you, and very good defensive prowess and incredible toughness. Those are the skills that I think that they're leaving on their bench. And when you think about where they are, and this is my biggest problem with Tibbs in the rotations, because how many games where the Knicks are up by 20 are Towns, Brunson, Bridges, Anunoby, and Hart on the floor, when it could be Hukporty, it could be Kolek trying to earn you minutes. You could leave a few starters out there, sure, preserve what you have in the lead. But when you're sacrificing potential development and potential exposure for these guys, that's where I have a problem. And Hukporty is the guy that you just have a huge question mark on as to whether or not he's an impact player on your basketball team, because I think he could be. I think we've all seen signs to say he could be, but we don't know if he actually is.
I don't understand the reluctance to playing Hukporty. To me, it just shows. I don't know what it shows. I don't want to say incompetence. I don't want to say this stubbornness, but that's just what words come to my mind, because Hukporty, we talk about guys in the league. You talk about the Josh Harts, right? These guys that are just grindy, gritty players, and they'll just do anything you need. They might not get everything on the stat sheet that you love to see. They might not, make your eyes pop out of your head. But you look at what Hukporty can do on the floor, and it's just nothing but intriguing. Everything that we just commented on Jericho Sims not being able to do, that's what Hukporty can do. He can hit the bunny floater on offense. He's a fantastic screen and roller on the offensive game. And then you look at defensively. I mean, you look in Germany when he was playing there, he had some good defensive numbers. I've seen some criticisms about his defense in the NBA, but with more playing time, you get more used to those rotations in the NBA, and you're able to make that happen. I feel like every other team in the NBA would have given Hukporty a fair shot in the rotation. Back end guy, as you mentioned, during crunch time, garbage time minutes. But this team with this coach does not have that happen. And I don't know. I want to have a conversation with you, Kevin, about Tibbs, because during this last month, nobody's really been criticized more than Tom Thibodeau, right? I've seen a lot of tweets saying, I think it's time for Tom Thibodeau to go. And I saw a comparison to the Cavaliers team, one of the best teams in the league. You made a video about them a couple days ago. The Cavaliers were one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference, right? With J.B. Bickerstaff as their coach. And they were making it to the playoffs, and they were doing everything they needed to do. They got rid of J.B. Bickerstaff, and we know how good of a coach he is now after looking in Detroit. But now they hire Kenny Atkinson, a guy that the team likes, the guy that everybody's kind of getting behind, and you're seeing how this team is just exploding and how this team is just oozing with confidence that we haven't seen in the past couple of years. And that to me has been the most compelling argument to move off of Tibbs. That, fine, you might not have another option. We could talk about that forever, but maybe this team does need that new, fresh face to actually bring a different style to what we already know is a talented team.
I like the comparison, because my whole thing is, if you're going to come to me with fire Tibbs arguments, you have to have a case. And the Cavs are a case. My only issue with it, the only rebuttal I have, and it's not me putting down that argument, it's just me saying, who are you replacing? Because if there is an identifiable guy like Kenny Atkinson who has had success as a head coach, I need to make sure that it's at the very least a sidestep, that this team will still be as good. And then the second thing I'd say is, I think the guys love Thibodeau. So how would that impact the players in the room? How would that impact the culture of the team and the dynamic that they have together? If it became problematic, then I'd say, you got to keep him and hope you can win with him. But there's a stubbornness, I think that is the right word, of him when it comes to the bench and when it comes to the minutes of his players. And sometimes we like to sit here and complain about load management. Do I think players should be sitting out games that they're healthy for? No. But do I think that there's some nights of the year where Jalen Brunson needs to play 20, 21 minutes? Yeah, I do. And I think if you're playing a team like The Sixers the other night would have been an ideal situation for this, right? But the game ended up being close. But let's just say you go into a game and you know that Embiid's out. You know that a team's missing their top players. And you get off to a nice start. You get off to a nice lead. Throw him to the bench. See what Campaign can do. Let Campaign go for 30 minutes. I think he's a good enough player. I think you have good enough players here to do that with the Knicks, whether it's an elite bench or not. So I'm very in the middle on the Thibodeau thing, but I couldn't justify them firing him to then hire one of these super assistants that you don't really know if they're proven or not. They're not proven, but you don't really know if they're going to be good or not. One guy that I could get around to it with, if we're just throwing names out, that I don't think would do it, is Dan Hurley. I think Hurley could be a guy who came in and elevated the Knicks because he will preach their defensive mindset. I think you need to have a guy with that too, because you have pieces long-term now with Anunoby, Bridges, that are wing defenders or with defensive upside, at least if you want to say that. I think that Hurley is the type of guy that they could go to for that. I don't think he would take that job. It's obviously just a crazy name to throw out. Sure. But I need somebody like that to justify firing Thibodeau.
How about this? Because I've seen some fans talk about it, right? I made a couple videos on Tibbs, and I'm all for keeping Tibbs. You know my stance on that. But a couple fans have come up to me and said, how about Mike Brown? He got fired from Sacramento. The players loved Mike Brown, but it was obvious that in Sacramento there just was a little bit of a disconnect there with that team and the coaching staff. But what if he comes over to the Knicks and kind of sets something ablaze? That's a guy that has playoff experience. That's a guy that has, been in these situations with talented rosters as well. Fine. Hasn't won anything, but, he's been in organizations that have. You look at the Warriors organization that he was with, they won a lot. Mike Brown's been around the league, and, I don't know if he'd be available. I don't know if that's maybe the move that's the most favorite thing. Once again, I just want to set the record straight. I don't want to fire Tibbs. I love Tibbs. I don't care about this being his only knock. But, if Mike Brown is that sidestep you're talking about, you might have me listening at the table.
Yeah, Mike Brown's a really interesting one. I think you look through his career, he had great years with LeBron in Cleveland, where at the end there, I think they were winning 60-plus games. I think they had a 66-win season in there towards the end with Mike Brown. And those Cleveland teams, we like to give LeBron credit for how great they were with limited supporting cast. And it really was just a decent supporting cast with the best player in the league. But you got to give Mike Brown a little credit there, too, for making it all come together with one guy who's great and a bunch of guys who were good, and then a few guys who were playing that really weren't very good. So I give Brown credit there. And the fact that he takes a few years off after that bad year in Cleveland that he had in 2013-14, he was there for 1 year after coaching the Lakers. He goes 1 year to Cleveland, done, and they reset, start something new there. And then he takes the time, spends with the Golden State dynasty, and then he goes to Sacramento, and he's good again. 15 years after leaving, 13 years after leaving Cleveland the first time. So there's obviously a good basketball coach there. I think that was reflected widely by the coaches who stuck their necks out for him, speaking about his firing and taking the side of the coach. And that was more than just the coach's fraternity thing. That was a real Mike Brown's a damn good basketball coach, and the Kings really blew this one. But Mike Brown, there's a good name. Like, Hurley is a crazy throw out there. You'd call him for an interview, but you probably won't get him type of name. Brown is a legitimate, would come to coach the team. You'd probably still win 50 games a year and maybe compete. The other part of this, Gabe, with the Knicks is, I know it's blasphemy to question him. I know Brunson is the savior. I love Jalen Brunson. But are Brunson and Towns on par with the other duos in the East? I think they are, for the record. I think they are. But we would be doing a disservice if we didn't at least have the conversation that, Tatum, I think, is a far better player than both of them. I don't think Jaylen Brown is, but Tatum is, and he's a part of that duo. Yeah. Donovan Mitchell, I do think, is better than both players, but not by much. So that's why I'm saying I don't think that there is this huge, maybe with Giannis, there's a massive disparity between top two guys, but it's just a conversation that I think could be had.
Yeah, I mean, there's four duos in the East, and all of them are going to be battling for those top four seeds at the end of the year with the Bucks, Boston, and then the Cavs and the Knicks, right? So, I mean, do I think that they are there in the conversation? I think you can make a case that they are the best of the four, but also it's right there. That's a conversation that if you came up to me and said, "Hey, the Knicks are the third or fourth best duo," I don't think I disagree too heavily, though. It's that close at the top of the Eastern Conference, but that's where you talk about, okay, those two players might not be the top two, but how well do they work with the other guys on the team and stuff like that. It's what makes this league, and it's what makes having a duo way more fun than having this supreme triumvirate, right? That we've seen in years past. These duos that you talk about, the prime of NBA basketball, right? The early 2010s, it was all duos, right? And we were all having these conversations. Who's got the best duo in the league? And there are actually good conversations. Now we're seeing it in the Eastern Conference at the top of that league. And do I think the Knicks have the best one? I mean, I guess I don't know if they do. I'd probably put them 2 or 3 right now, but they're right there. And I think you give them more time to really grow with each other, because what else do the other 3 duos have that this one doesn't? They've played more than one season. Fine, Dame was a little bit more than one season, but at this point, more than one season. So, it's a conversation to have. And I think, you look 2-3 years down the line, I think the Knicks and those two, if Cat stays, are definitely the best one. But right now, I don't think I can go that they're the best duo in the East. I don't know.
And I think that the Celtics, just by default, because of what they did last year, should get the crown on that, because you have Tatum and then you have Brown elevating in the playoffs, winning Finals MVP. Speaking of duos, though, you want to go to the Lakers here?
Yep.
LeBron, AD still having a very strong season. I mean, if you want to throw in top duos in the entire league, I think LeBron and AD have to be in the mix for sure. But the Lakers are still, they're having a weird couple weeks too. With the game cancellations, of course, the Fires in LA have postponed 2 games. Pray for everybody there. JJ Redick lost his home. Pray for his family. I thought it was great. Did you see CP3 and Wemby after that game with his kids, with Redick's sons, courtside?
Yes. Yeah, that was great. And one thing I know that JJ Redick's kids won't do is put Wemby's jersey up on eBay 2 days later. So I think that no, what they did was fantastic. Really, really great move. All they had to do was just come say hi. That's what JJ Redick asked. But CP3 and Wemby took off their jerseys, actually spent some time with them. Really, really good thing. And before we continue, since it's on the same topic, I don't know if you saw this story. A kid flew out to LA to see the Lakers play one of those games that got postponed. Game obviously got postponed, but the kid was a big Dalton Connect fan, and they put it out on Twitter or Facebook, whatever it was, and that got circulating that this kid was super distraught that he wasn't able to see his favorite player in Dalton Connect. And Dalton actually, they met up, they talked to each other. He gave him some game worn shoes. And really, really good moment there. So it's been one of my favorite parts about this. The reason why sports is so important to all of our lives is that it doesn't matter what's happening outside, right? We talk about the crazy political landscape. We talk about wildfires, natural disasters, and whatever else is going on. We all can unify under sports, and there's always good moments of happiness and kind of those wholesome moments that kind of keep us all going in this sports land. But yeah, no, a great moment from both Wemby there and Dalton Connect.
Yeah, I'm reading this now about Connect. That's a great story, man. Kid doesn't make the game, obviously, as you said. I think this is his mom's posted this, or his dad. Dalton came, spent around 45 minutes just talking to him, gave the kid Braxton some game-worn shoes, and the kid told his parent, whoever posted it, that this was better than going to the game. That's awesome. And from a rookie, too, man, that's stuff that you don't typically see from a rookie, and for him to understand the severity of just the context of the situation. I know that this kid seemingly is not involved in the forest fires. They don't seem like an LA family traveling to the game, but that was, to see Connect do that. Thanks for putting that on my radar. That's good stuff. So, I mean, some good comes out of these horrible, tragic events. 99.9% terrible, sad tragedy. 0.1% is the stuff like that that can put a smile on your face during it. But in terms of on the basketball court, we haven't spoken since D'Lo got traded for Finney Smith, which was a trade proposal that we had put down on this show in our last episode. How have you felt since that move was made?
I think it's kind of been a little bit of up and down. With every trade, you kind of have this adjustment period of players coming in and out. But at the end of the day, I think it works so well for the Lakers. Another wing defensive guy that needs to play more, honestly, right now. He's not in the starting lineup right now. They still have Hachimura in the starting lineup, and it needs to change. I think that's the biggest problem with this Lakers team right now. They're 5-5 in their last 10 games. And you look at some of the net ratings, right? And we can get a little nerdy here if we want. You look at all the starting lineups with Hachimura in it, the net ratings are negative right now. You look at the net rating starting lineup with just replacing Hachimura with DFS, Dorian Finney-Smith right now, it's a positive 64. And I know the sample size isn't crazy, but it is so massive, the difference that Dorian Finney-Smith makes on this roster. And he just needs more time with them to get more familiar and just to get more in the where they need to be. And that's on JJ Redick to make that happen. I think he's seeing the same analytics we're seeing, but that needs to change. And until that happens, I don't think this I don't think this Lakers team will really get past this hump that they're in right now, because they're kind of stuck in the mud right here in the middle of the season in the 6th seed, fighting to stay out of that play-in game. And they really can. They can compete for a top 4 seed in this Western Conference, but they need to make that change. I think that is eminent to this team's success if they do it.
Yep. Right now, Lakers are in 6th place, 12 games out of the 1 seed, but they're only, 4 games out from the Grizzlies, or 3.5 games out from the Grizzlies, who are in 3rd. So the Thunder have that gap on everybody. Mm-hmm. And then 2 through about 8 here from the Rockets to the Timberwolves in the standings is separated by 6 games. So that's how the Western Conference goes. That's how it always is. We know that. Nets-Lakers is tonight, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a little storyline for you. I didn't know if that was tonight or tomorrow, but that's tonight. Nets-Lakers. I just have to talk about it for a second so that I don't forget. How about the Nets-Clippers game the other night? Are you kidding me? I have never seen an NBA score like that. Did you see that?
Yeah, remember that one game? I forget what it was, but it was the OKC Thunder, and they blew out this other team by 50 whatever points a couple of years ago. It reminded me of that game. And I think it was OKC Grizzlies, because I think John Morant was out that night, and it was like a 50-point, just absolutely domination. And that game reminded me of that game. I mean, it was awful. I'm friends with a couple Net beat reporters because they also do Liberty games, and I mean, they were just making me die laughing on the timelines. They were pulling out the lot to little tweets, kind of all the kind of depressing stuff, because I mean, that should never happen in the NBA. Sometimes. We talk about teams being bad or teams sucking. No, that right there is a total team diff, and it's insane. And, you don't even have to play your players at that point in the second half because of how bad the game was.
No, that's bad stuff. 67 points in a total NBA game. Just do not see anything like that in today's league. Back to the Lakers, though. I think the difference, obviously, with Hachimura and Finney-Smith is with DFS, that you're getting with the acquisition a guy who's, maybe you get 10 points here and there in a game. He's not going to be an offensive primary guy for you, but you're getting a guy who knows how to play defense and knows how to rotate, and he's got a good understanding of it. I'm sure that he can seamlessly fit into the defensive side of things with a new team within a game or two, and that's what we've seen. Hachimura has been wildly disappointing defensively, I think, in his entire career to this point. And early on, I became a big fan of his. To start the year, I was. And the few instances I've watched him play defense this year, it's not even that I'm not impressed. I'm just completely out on his defensive ability. He is not a good defender at all, Gabe.
No, he's not a good defender at all. He's late on rotations. He's so many miscommunications throughout a game. And, the more that we see, him play and the more that people start to break down and put the microscope on him, you see how kind of lost he is on that defensive end. And the teammates are kind of frustrated about it. Now on the offense, though, Hachimura can get you a night. He had a night a couple nights ago where he dropped 27 points. Like that can happen with Hachimura if he gets hot and if he gets in the right zone. But I don't think that's the guy that the Lakers need. I don't think the Lakers need a guy, especially in that starting lineup, that is going to be a guy who is all over the place on offense and is a nothing on defense. You look at that lineup: LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Austin Reeves. Right? These are guys that are offense. Who needs Hachimura to be more offense? That team needs DFS to step into that starting rotation and play a bulk of those minutes. Have Hachimura come in, be a streaky scoring guy off the bench. He provides a good spot there. I don't know why that change hasn't happened. And, because it just makes sense when you talk about basketball and fit. Hachimura does not fit in that starting rotation. Hachimura deserves to really fit in that bench, and DFS, perfect get and a perfect guy for that starting rotation.
Yeah, 4 guys in the Lakers have started every game they've played. Hachimura, of course, one of them, along with Reeves, James, and Davis. So I don't know what Redick's seeing there in terms of the fact that he has to be a starter. Clearly, everything that you watch with the Lakers, everything you read indicates, and the stats just indicate that he's like a must-start guy for Redick to this point. Mm-hmm. And that I don't even think should be possible. Like Hachimura, too, is the type of guy that you see around the league that could get celebrated as a sixth man. So you want him coming off the bench, providing you those minutes for LeBron, AD, and Reeves, who are your scorers in the starting lineup. He's a fourth option already. Most fourth options in starting lineups that aren't big men are defense, and even with big men, they're defensive-oriented players. So fitting starter to slot in, I don't know if maybe they're just waiting a few games to get him more acclimated. He's only played 6 with the team, so that could be the case here. But he's played 6 games with the team. He's been with them for about 2.5, 3 weeks. I'd imagine that if he was going to get into the starting lineup, it's going to happen sooner than later. And if you don't see him in there soon, it probably just won't happen this year. But yeah, Lakers, we're going to get into contender pretender in a few minutes, but Lakers are on that bubble for sure of teams that have the core group with Reeves, LeBron, and Davis to contend, but it has to get filled out the rest of the way because, once again, like the Knicks, you watch the top teams in the West. How do you go 7 games with OKC or with Denver when your depth is what it is right now and that 4th or 5th guy are incredibly questionable on a nightly basis? So Lakers, I don't know, do you think that they get aggressive at the deadline, or do you think that they kind of stand pat and Finney-Smith was the move?
I think that they make one more move. I like that. I like their bench. Like I know I'm going to be kind of on the minority here. I like their bench, but as you mentioned, you need a bench that's consistent. And right now, they don't have to be the best bench in the world, but they need to be a consistent net positive bench. And right now, the Knicks, the Lakers, I keep on saying the Knicks. I'm doing a bad job. Right now, the Lakers bench is just inconsistent. You'll have one night where Max Christie and Gabe Vincent both drop 15 plus, and you're thinking really good about the Lakers bench. And then the next night, they both have 6 points, and they're shooting 20% from the field. So if they can get a consistent bench going, and I think it's possible with one more move, then I think this Lakers team could definitely be in that kind of upper echelon, 3rd, 4th seed in the Western Conference with ease.
So let's jump into here trade season while we keep alluding to it. And right now, NBA trade season is going to start heating up. We know that. We've seen a couple trades. I think we'll go to the Suns first. We already mentioned D'Angelo Russell, so we won't go into that as it's old news and we talked about it. But with the Suns, they get Nick Richards. I just read on my phone from Forbes, I don't know how recent the article was, that the Suns cannot find a trade partner for Yusuf Nurkic. So he's going to become the 4th string center. But they needed to get Richards. They needed to get tougher at center, and they need to get more physical in that starting lineup. And or just overall as a team. I mean, they are so soft as a team. So to go and get Richards was a good move. Your thoughts here on that acquisition?
I needed the Knicks to get Nick Richards. I don't know why the Knicks didn't get him. You look at the price tag there, a Kogi and a second or two, whatever that was. You're telling me the Knicks couldn't have swung that. Nick Richards. I mean, what he adds. You talk about his stats. He's a double average right now guy, and he's giving you 1.7 blocks a night. Like that to me says everything I need, because we look at this Suns team, especially with the guys that they have, right? You have Devin Booker, you have Kevin Durant, you have a guy in Bradley Beal, uber offensive guys. What do you need? A defensive anchor down low. You need a guy like Nick Richards to, when that first layer of defense gets blown by, he could be there, stand pat, and be a guy that could give you a hard 30 minutes of tough defense. And rebounding, especially. Nurkic, his biggest problem was he played no defense. And Kevin Durant and Nurkic got into a little conversations and arguments during games where Nurkic would just look confused on defense, and he would kind of give up bad body language. Nick Richards isn't going to do that. He's been a player that has shot up on value this season, and I'm super proud of what the Suns were able to do there to get a guy and kind of snipe him when he was on the trending upwards in terms of value, but wasn't at like max peak value. So they didn't have to spend that Gucci price. They could spend a decent price and get a fantastic player in return.
Yeah, right now the price officially was Okogie. The Suns also get a second-round pick from Charlotte, but they give up Okogie, the Nuggets 2026 pick, and their 2031 pick, as well as the Suns' own 2031 pick. So it's three second-round picks over the next 6 years. Josh Okogie for Nick Richardson. I mean, if you really look at it, what that deal entails for Phoenix, it's also a let's all save our jobs contract or trade, because if this season continues to go the way it is, with the Suns being the 10 seed, they're 500. They've been one of the softest teams in the NBA. I expect them to get into the playoffs, or at least into the play-in in those final four spots, but they have been such a disaster and failure that they need to save their jobs, and they needed to make a move. And you don't care about your 2031 picks really ever, but especially when you hope to even have a job in 2031 or even in 2026, then you have to make these deals. Good move for the Suns, though. I don't love it for Charlotte. I thought if they waited it out another 2 weeks maybe to get closer to the deadline, you could have gotten more. Say somebody goes down. Say in the next situation, they lose a guy, Sims or Hukporti or Achua, and they find out Mitchell Robinson's not coming back till the end of March. That's the type of stuff that you should have waited on, but they like the value they got there. They probably liked Okogie as a player to a certain extent to make that trade. Charlotte stinks, though.
Yeah.
And good trade for Phoenix. The Hornets, what are they right now? The 14 seed. They're 9-28. And good trade for Phoenix. They had to do it.
No, they had to do it. That team just needs to be healthy. Right now, even they have Bradley Beal out with an ankle injury. This team can never seem to get those three guys together. And it's just how it's been. Everybody knew that coming in, that Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, and Devin Booker, they're great when they're all together, especially on the offensive end. But guess what? They get hurt a lot, especially Bradley Beal. So that team needs to stay healthy. Now with Nick Richards joining them in the next couple of days here, I think it'll help them out immensely here.
Yeah, some more NBA trade stuff. Jimmy Butler, the kind of elephant in the room of the trade deadline. Yep. Miami being completely stubborn, going full Pat Riley mode on this trade request, but that doesn't mean he won't get moved, in my opinion. I don't know if he will. Right now, I'm probably leaning towards no, but it's a very slight lean. Do you think Butler gets moved? If so, what are some spots?
I don't know where in the world would take him, but let's throwing that out there. Let me throw this one out here for you. A reunion back in Minnesota. I think that the Timberwolves are kind of looking to find themselves back into the upper echelon of the Western Conference. I think they realize that this Cat trade hasn't really worked out too well for them. On the flip side, with Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo, whatever, they have made a change to their starting lineup to get Dante in the starting lineup. And since then, the team has been playing much better. Dante DiVincenzo has been playing much better. But I think they realize that, hey, you get a guy with the toughness that that Jimmy Butler has. You could try to deal with the contract on the back end next season. And just for 1 year, I think that could be enticing with a team like the Minnesota Timberwolves. Imagine that duo with Anthony Edwards and Jimmy Butler. I think that right there, in terms of like, talking trash and being like a gritty and tough kind of mindseted team, I think those two would pair perfectly with each other, both on and off the court, as kind of like a mentorship thing as well with Jimmy Butler. So I don't know how the ownership views Jimmy Butler, because obviously the last time he was in Minnesota, a couple things kind of went awry with him destroying the starters with the practice team and kind of all of that stuff before he got moved. But I think that move, I think schematically at least, makes a lot of sense to me. But I just don't see realistically like any team actually kind of trading for him.
I do think that Pat Riley will field calls here. I don't think that he is completely against trading Butler, because at this point it's a headache for him, right? It's a headache for a player who, I mean, we've been saying since the first episode of this, should be getting moved this year. And it should have been a situation that Miami was putting themselves in anyways. They have not gone all in to contend with Butler. They've gotten way too creative and are attempted to be way too creative with veterans and different role players that they're bringing in, trying to elevate, which, yeah, they do a good job of it relative to other teams in the NBA, but it's not enough. You need to make better moves, and they haven't been able to do so. Dame, I think, was a move they really wanted with this team 2 years ago, and they couldn't pull it off. And of course, Dame wanted Miami. That would have been a really good squad when you're building around Bam, Jimmy, and Dame. Didn't happen. I think it would have been an even better fit for Lillard than Milwaukee has been. But either way, I digress. They will try to move Butler, I think, or at least pick up the phone and say, this is what we want. If you're not willing to comply, we're not going to move. This is what you have to give up to get him. And teams will not go for it because the contract, because you have to give up players and picks to get them. And there's clearly some issue with Jimmy Butler that, he's a problem in the locker rooms.
Yeah.
It's not as much of the flip. You talked about it in Minnesota. Well, Minnesota, when he was there and he disrupted that locker room, I don't think he liked any of the coaches there. I don't think he liked Towns, because Towns was still in that soft era.
Yep.
And they didn't have Anthony Edwards. That was in, I believe Mike Conley was on that team, or was it D'Angelo Russell?
I wouldn't remember.
Yeah, it was one of the two of them. I'm pretty sure it was Russell. And it just was a mess because Butler didn't fit there. The spot that he would have worked out in was Philly, I think. And Philly losing him disrupted a lot of what they wanted to do. I think that played a role in Ben Simmons' demise, ultimately not the catalyst for it, but Jimmy Butler made that team a lot better.
Yep.
And that was the best Sixers team they ever had in the Embiid era, the process era. So him leaving there hurt, them picking Simmons over him hurts in hindsight, felt like the right move at the time. But we're sitting here now, and Jimmy Butler is on his last legs. He's probably only going to be an impact player for another year or two at a championship level. What is he, 35, 36 years old? So, I mean, does anyone take him? I don't think so. But if they did, I don't hate Minnesota as an option. I don't think it would be Golden State at this point. But he's not even the most attractive trade candidate for me. If you're looking for that skill set, yeah, he would be. But you have guys like Vucevic, Valanciunas, John Collins, Rob Williams. If these guys are going to get moved, then these might be players that just fit better for what you're trying to do if you're not looking to add a star.
Yeah, and I think that contract plays a big part of it. Right now, $48 million tag this year. Next year, he's going to take the player option, which is $52 million. It just makes no sense for me on the financial standpoint that you would really want to kind of wrap yourself up with that nonsense. I just don't get it.
Yep, it doesn't make much sense. How about Steph Curry getting traded to the Knicks? This is an all-timer that we have to talk about. According to the Sporting News, well, they just say Warriors-Knicks trade idea involving Steph Curry. Must have been a slow news day from Dean Simon, 1:48 p.m. Eastern, January 15th. Had to have been nothing else going on.
Nope.
He says that the Knicks, while they were beginning to slide, should trade Brunson for Steph Curry. And I'm trying to find where this exact trade was in this article.
I will say the guy got great clicks for that video. I mean, not for that video, for that article. I
Oh yeah.
mean, it's an awful idea. Makes no sense. No matter what deal you're gonna kind of spew out, an awful deal. And but look, that gets posted on Knicks Muse, and they're like, "There's no chance." And this guy gets so many clicks on that thing. Why else would you make a stupid article like that?
There's not even a trade proposal in this. It's literally just send Brunson for Curry. Which,
Yeah, nice swap. That makes sense.
Doesn't make sense. I don't think it makes sense for either team to do. For being honest.
Of course, yeah. Let's just trade the faces of the franchise. Let's just swap them, and let's do that. You have an opportunity. Curry's going to get a statue outside of Chase Center. If Jalen Brunson has the career that he's projecting to have, he's going to be the greatest point guard Nick of all time. He might be the best or second best Nick of all time when it's all said and done. Yeah, let's just trade him away. Let's just swap these guys. Great job, Dean Simon. I mean. Look, we write sometimes, and sometimes we get some crazy ideas. That should never be published. Never. I don't care how many clicks you're getting. If I write that and I'm getting clowned like that, I'll make a sellout video, right, on Playbook. I'll do it. But I'm never getting clowned like that because at least there's some sort of logistic behind it. This guy's just saying something that makes no sense.
No, this is classic Knicks for clicks. Classic Knicks for clicks, and you're taking a player in Curry that is just the generation's favorite player, really the post LeBron, like the LeBron's played for 8 generations now, but just that post LeBron generation is Curry's the guy. And you're taking a guy who, I mean, it doesn't make any sense. That's what I have to just come back to. I can't go off on this Knicks for clicks rant, but it doesn't make any sense because Jalen Brunson right now is 8 years younger than Steph Curry, face of the Knicks franchise. He's the most relevant player they've had since Patrick Ewing. And Brunson's averaging more points than Curry. So he's scoring more than Steph Curry, who I still think is a better player. Don't get me wrong, but not by too much for me to want to sacrifice a player who's scoring 4 points per game more, is 8 years younger, and means everything to your city and to his teammates.
Yeah. And give it like a season or two, Brunson's going to be a better player.
Yeah.
Regardless. So I don't know.
And if the Knicks get Curry, do they win the championship this year? No. I don't give them a better chance than they have now with Brunson.
No, yeah, it's the same exact thing. Curry adding to that team makes no difference to the trajectory of what this Knicks roster is trying to do. None.
This is not 2014 Curry. This is 2024 Curry. 2025 Curry.
2025 Curry. Yeah.
All right. Contenders or pretenders time?
Yeah, let's do it, man.
All right. So the way I made this list today, we've got 12 teams, and we have 4 teams from the East. So there's 8 Western Conference teams here. Based on record, the teams that got cut off in the East, I think that we would have just agreed that they were not contenders. So it's everything after Milwaukee. So it's Orlando, Atlanta, Indiana, Miami, Detroit, Chicago. I think we would have.
Detroit, I don't know, man.
Detroit looks gross right now, though.
Yeah.
Last 10, they're 7-3. They might be a contender. Yeah. But so we cut those teams out. And then in the West, I took the top 8 teams.
Okay.
And I think that that's pretty solid because when you go to that Western Conference, after those top 8, it's Sacramento, Phoenix, Golden State, San Antonio. Those teams are not contending here.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we start with the Thunder. Contender or pretender?
Clear contender here. They look like the best team in the league. Had another dominant win yesterday against the Cavs. So definitely a contender there.
Defending champs, the Celtics.
Celtics got to be a contender. I don't know what they do here moving on. I think they might make a sneaky move at the deadline to really kind of solidify things. But I definitely have them as a contender.
All right, so we get the 2 easy ones out of the way first. How about the Cavs?
Cavs, they're a contender right now. A lot of Knicks fans, delusional Knicks fans, will tell you no, the Cavs aren't anything. The Cavs are legit. We've talked about it ad nauseum at this point. They're a serious contender.
All right, the Knicks.
The Knicks now, this is where you start to have these conversations. I don't think the Knicks are a real contender on January 17th. I think they need to make a move to really solidify that bench or just have a coach to play their bench more and for them to be a real contender. As of today, no, pretender.
All right, the Rockets.
Rockets, they're an interesting team. I'm going to slot them in as a pretender here, just because I just don't think that they have the experience to really go out and win a championship run here, especially against the OKC Thunder. I think there's a couple more contenders in the Western Conference. I don't think the Rockets are one of them.
Houston is a year away here, but I think we'd agree this is a tough team to get in a playoff series. They're going to wear you down. They're going to make you feel it, but they're not there yet.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Grizzlies.
A pretender.
Yeah. Easy. Enough said.
Yep.
Nuggets,
they got to be a contender. They haven't played as well this season, but that's a team with playoff experience, and you have the best player in the entire world. So I make that happen.
Clippers,
pretender.
It's fair. All right. Next team, Bucks.
Pretender. I don't like the Bucks roster at all. Outside of the top two and maybe Brook Lopez, I don't like Chris Middleton. He's on the bench for a reason now. I don't like the Bucks.
Lakers,
I don't have them as a contender right now. Actually, man, you're really annoying me with this one. Because that's my guy. That's my guy. LeBron, bro. I think LeBron makes them a contender.
Okay, and Anthony Davis.
But if you gave me a guy, and Anthony, obviously that duo. But if you gave me a guy who was doing exactly what LeBron was doing, but his name wasn't LeBron James, I'd say that they're a pretender. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yep, that's fair. That's fair. LeBron turns it up in the playoffs, possibly his last run. You never know.
Yeah.
Mavericks,
no, right now. I think the Mavericks need to make a move or two at the deadline. They need to figure out their injury situation with Luka. I know he's kind of up and down with injuries. You had Kyrie with that bulging disc in his back. That needs to get figured out if they really want to contend. I think last year was a fluke run for them anyway to the finals. I don't think they're a contender back this year.
All right, last one, T-Wolves, because they made the conference final last year. Right now, they're the last seed they're the 8th seed, so you have to play in teams after, but they're the 8th seed. T-Wolves, contender or pretender?
Absolutely a pretender. Don't see the T-Wolves doing much unless they make some sort of blockbuster move.
Yep, I agree with that. I think Dallas is a contender if they're healthy in the playoffs, right? Just get in, get healthy, maybe add one guy at the deadline that can complement your squad. But until then, it's just been an injury-riddled season after a finals run last year, and doesn't feel like it's going to be their season. I'll agree with you that the Lakers, despite their spot in the standings, that's what everyone's going to look at right away as contender, pretender. They're going to say, oh, but this team's worse than this team. Like, it's not really how it goes. We know that. The Lakers, I think, are better. They're a 6th seed. I think they're better than the Clippers, who are in front of them. I think they're better than the Grizzlies. I think they're better than the Rockets. And you can win your regular season games. That's all cool. We see these teams. Lakers were in the conference final 2 years ago as a 6th seed. So we see these teams make the runs without, they were a 7 seed, 6 seed, whatever they were. We see these teams make the runs now out of that 6-7 spot. We saw the Pacers do it last year in the Eastern Conference. It happens. We saw the Hawks do it a few years ago. 5 through 8 seeds are making the runs. How about the Heat going to the finals a few years ago? They make the run, and there's always a team that struggled in the regular season that was better than their overall record. And there's vice versa. I think you're seeing that with the Rockets. I don't think that they can score with some of these teams in 7-game series. And I don't – listen, defense wins games. We know defense is important. Defense wins championships, blah, blah, blah. You have to be able to score in the NBA right now. You have to be able to. And postseason comes around, you got to have both. And the Lakers right now, they have some stuff to do. They have some stuff to work on. But they feel like the 3rd best team in the West for me because of that duo that they have. And you got to throw Reeves in also. But the Nuggets I think are better, and the Thunder obviously are better than both.
Yeah, 100%. And with the Rockets, just a closing point. I mean, they have a fantastic defense. That team is so, you said it, they're so tough. You do not want to get that team. That team right there, it reminds me of not in terms of play style and but in terms of positioning in the West, reminds me of where the Nuggets were before they were winning their championships or getting on their championship really runs. The kind of that team where we were saying it, oh well, you know what they'll do in the regular season, but playoffs they haven't shown it. They haven't shown it, and they need a year to get there. I think that's kind of where the Rockets are. I think, as you said, 1 year out, I think is definitely possible with the Rockets, and kind of let's see where they go. This isn't like a bash of the Rockets, but if you're a Rockets fan right now, Houston is definitely up in terms of the rise of basketball. So they're definitely having a good time over there for the next couple of years.
Yep, good for them. Anything else you want to talk about today, Gabe? As we approach the hour mark, 55 minutes in here, we covered a lot. Anything else you got?
No, I think we got it all. In terms of who I want to see, and I know we'll get more into this as we get the weeks go, but as of today, who I want the Knicks to try to maybe get or might have to trade away. I'll say this. I think the Knicks might have to trade away Precious Achiuwa. I'll kind of leave it at that. In the beginning of the season, I said that he signed that vetmin contract or that mid-level exemption contract because the Knicks probably thought he would be traded at the deadline. I'm going to stick to my guns on that and say that he will be traded at the deadline because I think that's a guy that Knicks fans would be like, oh, but I really liked him. But you're going to get someone actually back that's valuable for Precious Achiuwa that I don't think you're going to get anywhere else. So I think Precious might have to go at the deadline. We'll have to see how that goes.
If you're keeping Mitch Robb and you want to contend for a title this year, I would like to see them upgrade a skill and get a different skill set for Achiuwa. It's a good point there, and he's got the contract that makes it possible to do it. All right, good finishing point right there. We'll wrap up. We're actually doing an episode of the Burrows today at 3 o'clock. Mike and I, we're going to talk about the Pete Alonso stuff. So if you're in baseball, come chat, come hang out there. That'll be on Spotify as well. Link in our bio. We'll throw it in once the episode's done on Instagram. Hopefully TikTok doesn't get banned. Don't think it's going to. Don't think anything's going to happen there, but we'll see. Appreciate the support on all of our pages there. We've been doing really well. Hardline came out this morning. Or yesterday morning. Hardline came. It's today, Friday. Yeah, Hardline came out yesterday morning talking about the division round. We're going to have on Instagram now coming every week Mike's picks before the weekend. That's going to be out this afternoon. Mike's NFL picks this afternoon or tomorrow morning. So stay tuned for that if you want to make some picks for the weekend. Mike has all the good ones.
If you want to fade all of them.
If you want to, yeah, exactly. If you want to fade every pick this weekend, go for that. And we have some new stuff coming next week. So stay tuned on the Instagram. All the updates will be there. Appreciate you watching, and we will see you next Thursday.